Okay, so in this particular slide, what the point we're at is we're in the middle of deploying, well, we've deployed the AWS SMS server, and we've got a provision in VMware, and we now have a URL that we can actually browse to it and start configuring it. Prior to this, what I've did is in Active Directory, I configured a new service account with domain user rights, so that's the only thing permitted for it. And I've made that as a user in vSphere, in the vCenter, and I've assigned a new role that I created. The role that I created is based on the minimum requirements for vCenter. So let's go ahead and click on Next, and let's enter in a password for the management console of this web interface. This is showing the stuff that you can do when you actually connect to the VM itself on the console. You can log in and perform the steps that it outlines here. And that's the credentials you're going to use to actually do that. So you would use that in case you change the IP address or something to that effect. But yeah, it's pretty much just network related. So we're going to go ahead and have a look, see what else you can do, reset the password on it just in case you forget. I'm assuming you're going to need to remember it anyways to actually be able to log into it in the first place. So EC2 user, so it uses a separate set of credentials than the web interface does. Let's click Next. And here it uses the, it's just the upload logs and so on. So next on that one. Okay, then here you provide what region it's going to be in this case Sydney. There's only 3 regions available. And then you're going to give it the access key and the secret access key for the non-privileged IAM user account that you would create for the SMS service. Now, in regards to the IAM user account, that account currently has several policies that were created. So these policies are part of the details that you get from the documentation that let you create the roles and the policies you need using the JSON files that you get from the web page. So as you can see here, that's the IAM user, and those are the roles that were created, the policies that were created using the scripts down at the bottom here. So that's the ones. So yeah, that's the JSON details. And then there's another non-privileged access section, which is at the very bottom. Because we're going to be using this account itself to move the data with, we're not going to use a full-fledged IAM user. We're going to use the same account as the service account here. We created that one and assigned it that inline policy as well. So that way we keep things nice and secure at the minimal allowed required security for this. Okay, so we've added in the credentials, the secret keys and so on. So now we have to specify the vCenter hostname and an account that has access to the vCenter. That's at the minimum level. In this case, I've added the tick box there because this vCenter is just for a lab and it's got, it doesn't have a proper certificate, it's expired and so on. So we'll click Next. Okay, the thumbprint, hit Trust. And it looks like I forgot to specify the domain / in front of the user account. So there it is. Let's go ahead and put that back in there. Okay, now it should work. Trust it again. Okay. So now it's verifying that everything is set up correctly on both on-prem as well as on the AWS side as well with regards to access. And it's just going to check on the connector itself to see if it's updated. Now this does take a while. It takes about maybe, I'd say 30-40 seconds or so before it actually comes up with it showing that the connector is up to date or not. For some reason the S3 bucket where the OVA resides on is pretty slow to get going, but then after a while it does pick up in speed, so it starts at about 26K and goes up to about a meg or so once you get throughput going properly. So it's now done, and this as far as the on-premise side of the appliance is concerned. It's now configured. It doesn't do anything more from here. You can manage it with the URLs there on the right, but there's nothing else you have to do on this side. The rest is done through the AWS console itself. So Yeah, these don't do anything except give you like the log bundle there for troubleshooting purposes, for support and stuff. So let's go ahead and look at the AWS console now. And that's where we've confirmed the download. We can now view the connectors and start creating our first job. So first thing we gotta do, once it's validated everything successfully, is we're gonna click on Import Server Catalog, and that will interrogate your vCenter and find out what VMs are actually there and what they are and so on. So this will take a minute or so. This took maybe 20 seconds, I believe. So it doesn't take long at all. It spins around and then you get the list of all your servers that you can browse. So that's going to be done in a couple of seconds. Okay, so those are all the servers in the lab. And I'm going to start by looking at a very small server. It's a Windows 7 deployed server. And we're going to start doing a replication job based on that Windows 7 workstation. So, yeah, it's a bit annoying. It doesn't come up in alphabetical order until you click the column up there, and it alphabetizes everything, and then you can quickly see it. So we're going to go ahead and kick off replication there. Let's see what else is going on. That should be fine. Yeah, I do have a Windows 8 client device that I was thinking of replicating instead. But, yeah, let's go ahead and go with that one. Alright, so they have to set the license type as AWS or BYOL, and because we're doing a migration from on-prem, it's going to be BYOL. And I just got to double check the IAM service role. I do believe I created one called SMS, but I just need to double check that one. So this particular role I got from the documentation on the web page. So that was that JSON detail from the non-privileged account setup, and that's the details for that policy. So yeah, that's already attached to the IAM user account that we've been using throughout. So, yep, that's the role. And let's go ahead and click on the replication job. So it's now set to pending, and it's giving us details at the bottom in regards to preparing replication job. And what it'll be doing is it'll actually create a new snapshot in VMware through vCenter, and then it'll start creating an OVA from that. So that's now still pending, and I think it's got the same issue with a lot of the web UI stuff with AWS in regards to it not updating that until you refresh the web page or go to something else and go back. And yeah, for some reason that happens, so it's not really going to give you a different status until you click out of it. So let's look at the actual vCenter itself to see what it's doing. Okay, so there it is, create a virtual machine snapshot, and now it's exporting the OVF to a template. So it's going to be doing that in the background throughout. So we'll see how long it takes to actually do that replication job. Okay. I'm just waiting to see when it says 1%. It's taking a while. There you go. Okay, so started at 3:34. Yeah, it's only been about a minute and a half. So it's going relatively quick. Okay, so there he is, still going. Okay, so we've double checked on it, and it's it's done a fair bit in roughly 20 minutes. So roughly, it's roughly doing 1% every minute or so. So trying to find out is how big the data store usage is for this VM at this point. So let's see if I can find out what that is. I'm looking at a different VM right now because for some reason it's tied up and it's not showing up the details for this one. So anyways, let's look at the browse data store, and there it is. So it's roughly a 25 gig provisioned disk, and of that, I think we're only going to be using about 8 gig, but we'll see. Let's see what that accounts to anyhow. That's a snapshot that's doing right now, so it's only about a meg there. And I'm trying to find the actual SMS VM itself. So I'm pretty sure it's not in this data store, so I'll have to look somewhere else. Okay, so there it is. And now, just waiting for it to populate. There it is. It just took a while. So it provisions 5 disks on its own, and they're up to 300 gig in size. But as you can see, that's only using 5.7 gigs out of the 22. That was using 800 and some meg out of the 16 gig. It's 23 meg out of the 8 gig, 14 meg out of the 4 gigabyte disk, and about 475 megabytes out of the 262 gig disk. So I imagine this is all for tracking the importation of the data, keeping track of the logs, and talking to the AWS console itself, and just making the database there to keep track of everything that's going on. So I wouldn't think it would be using up the whole lot, unless you had thousands and thousands of VMs for it to migrate. But as it is currently, we're going to be using this for a very small use case, so we won't be using all that in any large amount at all. Okay, so it's updated the status, and it's now converting. So it's converting the OVA into the VMDK to be usable as an AMI as well. So it's doing all that in the one kind of task. So as like I said, it doesn't update it until you've clicked out and click back in. So the job is still active. Select it. Yeah, it's still going. It's done 3 out of the 4 tasks. So we'll see how much longer this will take. Okay, what else? Okay, here we go. Okay, so it's done now. And as you can see, it started at 3:34, finished at 4:20, so just under the hour to actually, finish that off. Okay, and let's see. So that job is now completed. 4 out of 4 tasks done. And it's created the AMI out of that. So, yep, that's what was done. We're going to check to see what the console says in regards to the bucket where that lives. And up in there, when this is bloody populated. Yeah. Okay, there's the bucket. It's SMS-B. It always starts with that. And it's going to show us, hopefully, the details of this VM that we can see. So there it is, and that's the VMDK. It's only 8.8 gigabytes. So it did 8.8 gigabytes over the wire in under an hour. So that's pretty good. And we have a pretty crap link, so it's not bad at all for upload. Alright, so happy with that. And let's see. So let's see what else we can find out about this one. Okay. So I did another job with Windows 8.1 workstation. I forgot that it was a tech preview, and as you can see, it flagged that up, and it doesn't like it, saying it's unsupported, and it's failed. And it failed about maybe 10 minutes in or something. It was to the point where it actually started to replicate enough data for it to know what kind of OS it's trying to replicate up. So anyway, it's going to get rid of that one. But in the meantime, to deploy this out from the replicated instance is we just go actions, launch the instance from the AMI, and it should bring up the EC2 wizard in regards to selecting the instance. Oh, there you go. So what happened there is that it looks like there's a bug where it doesn't know what region it's in, and you have to manually select it afterwards. So that's something they'll have to fix. So anyways, once you select the region, it'll then bring you to the EC2 wizard, and it'll show you all the instance types that it's available to be used in. It's only a small set of them, and I'm thinking the reason for that is probably because it's Windows 7 workstation. Like it's not a server OS, so it probably doesn't support the larger instance types, or there would be no need for them. But it's something we'll have to keep in mind in regards to doing this for a real migration. So yeah, that's the only thing that I can think of in regards to it not working out, is that it's just not a supported OS for those larger instance types, so there's no need to make them available. I've seen this before with other AMIs, but we'll see. We'll have to test this out. I'm just seeing if there's any other way of showing any other options for this, but I don't think there is. Okay, in any event, we'll can that. And I think the next step we're going to do now is we're going to do a real server OS migration instead of a Windows workstation as such, and see if that gives us different options for our AMIs. I'll be moving up an Active Directory server and an SQL Windows Server 2012 R2. Okay, so I have this powered on Server 2012 R2, domain controller, and SQL Server. That's going to be the next ones we're going to be moving across. There they are. License type to BYOL. And again, we're going to say to replicate. SMS is the role that we want to assign for this particular job, same as before. And let's go ahead and create that. So in doing this, it's going to do the same thing it did before, and I'll start replicating them over, and we'll see what happens with them once they finished off to see did they replicate live and so on. And then what I'll do is I'll start making some changes to SQL and Active Directory and see if those those changes are replicated across as well. And then finally, I'll see what that looks like when we spin them up as EC2 and the actual instance types that we're able to select from. Okay, and this is the two servers now replicated over. Let's try spinning up the domain controller first. And it should give us the S2 EC2 wizard. There it is. And as suspected, the OS supports more than the smaller amount of instance types. So with the server 2012 R2, the whole gamut is supported. So I'm going to go ahead and spin that up from just one of these and see if everything works afterwards. Okay, so I've spun up the two AMIs into actual instance types. I'll be checking to see if they're going or not. But one thing I found in these SMS service frequency for replication jobs is that the most frequent that can be replicated is in 12 hours. They can't replicate even quicker than that, which means that your changes when you replicate stuff is going to be at minimum of 12 hours behind. So yeah, that's going to be one of the potential challenges here, is that you can't get like up to the minute or within the hour. It's 12 hours, so that's not ideal. I'm sure that will change in the future, but for now, that's the limitation. Alright, I want to check our Active Directory access in a second. Okay, so it looks like that was just for the schedule. You can actually manually kick off a replication by going start replication run, and that'll get your replication going now. But that's outside of the schedule. The schedule is, like I said, minimum of 12 hours, so you can do a manual sync with this. Just give it a description as to why you want to do a replication, and then replicate currently. So you can force it, but it's a manual process. Okay, so that's the public IP of our Active Directory instance, and this is just a lab account. So we're going to connect with our existing credentials before we got migrated. That's the DNS name. It's just taking a while to launch the RDP first time for this account, so we'll see how long this takes in the end. So logging in pretty much takes me to that black screen, and it seems to be taking forever. Interesting to note, as once it's actually been migrated across, it does do an EC2 configure and installs the service, as you can see through here, along with the paravirtual drivers and so on. Anyhow, I'm going to probably restart these two instances and see if I can RDP to them afterwards, because I think because the IP address and all that changed, it's going spastic. Okay, so Windows is just booting up, as you can see from here. So I think we'll give it a minute. Okay, so this is after restarting the server, and it looks like it's functioning properly in regards to the being able to RDP in. Okay, so it took maybe another 20 seconds after updating my password. It gave me a black screen again, but it took about 20 seconds, and now I'm in. So it looks like Windows is back to functioning normally. So I'm just going to clean that up, and what I'll do is in DNS I'll make a new updated address entry for the SQL server that got migrated along with this,
and then I'll try logging into the SQL server. So I tried already, but it said there's no Active Directory servers available to process the login request, which is because the IP is different. So I'll do that, and then we'll see how that goes. Okay, so I've restarted the SQL server, and I'm getting this on startups, which is when it has bad entries on the disk. So that's probably my fault. I didn't confirm whether or not these were in a healthy state or anything like that. So yeah, that's one thing, is make sure that everything's in a state where it's ready to move. So that's part of the migration process anyhow. But yeah, so it's just doing this verification. Once it's done, I'll test out accessing it through RDP. Okay, this is that same SQL server, so it also looked like restarting it. It hadn't finished doing its customization for some reason. So that's probably something to be aware of, is you'll probably need maybe 2 or 3 reboots after VM's migrated before it's fully ready to use and it's all done with everything it needs. And to my point, that SQL server, because it took so long doing its verification for its indexes and so on for the disk repair, it failed or only passed one of the status checks. So I've just given it another reboot just to make sure the status checks come up all clean. Okay, so after rebooting, the C drive had to do some more index checking and all that, but there was no errors found, there's nothing to fix, and it eventually got to the Windows logon page, and I rebooted it again just to double check everything, and now status checks are all happy. Okay, so I deleted the SQL replication job, just action delete replication job, and so that one's gone. It's in the middle of deleting now. Anyhow, I've made some changes to the domain controller. I've made sure the password wasn't going to be expired and so on. So we shouldn't get prompted for that when we RDP back in, when we spin it up for the new replication. I've also created a file on the desktop, just a BMP file. So I'm going to go ahead and start this replication job now. So let's go ahead and call this 11:10 a.m. replication. Start. Okay, security token included in the request is invalid. That's pretty odd. I'll have to find out what the deal is with that. So we do have 2 AMIs from this, but it's being weird about it. So what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to try to just run it immediately again by just updating the schedule, just hitting save, see if that does anything. Okay. So for some reason, if you tried to do a replication run through here for an already ongoing job, it doesn't like it. It comes up with that security token error, even though it shouldn't. But anyways, by editing the schedule, we've actually kicked off a replication anyhow, which is what we tried to do by going through that manual process anyhow. So that's doing it. And to get an update, again, because of the stupid GUI, you have to go out, go back in, and let's have a look. It's this guy here. And so scheduled test 4. So it's still in pending state. So anyways, that should be kicked off in a minute. We'll have a look. Okay, and sure enough, as you can see here in the vSphere client, it's definitely done a new snapshot, completed that. And if we have a look back in the console, here we have the server. It's uploading that now. So when that's done, in our run history, we should have another AMI available for us. So it looks like as it does its own jobs for every day, it creates a new AMI. So that's one thing to be also worried about, is making sure that you go and clean up any AMIs it's created. By deleting the job, however, it should clean them all up. So I'm just going to double check to see if this AMI, for the one that we've got rid of, is no longer present in the EC2 console. Let's go ahead and have a look at that. Okay, so that's the AMI that we deleted as part of deleting the SMS job, but it didn't delete it by deleting the job. We have to go back and manually clear up any AMIs that are done in regards to migrations. So once we've actually provisioned the VMs and made them into instances, we should just go back and make sure that any AMIs spun up by that, if we're all done with it, are cleared out. And the same thing in S3, I would suspect. So I'm just going to double check that as well, but I suspect the VMDK will be in S3 as well. Okay, so those are our replication job names, and the ones that we got rid of is this one, 404B, and then S3 in the bucket, the SMS bucket, 404B, that's the job there. That's the runtime of the job, and sure enough, our VNDK is there as well, even though we've already completed that job, the replication job, and we've actually deleted it. It hasn't cleaned up anything in the background, so that's one thing to be aware of. Like I said, is getting rid of the AMIs it's spun up as a result of the migration, and then get rid of the job data from the bucket that it creates. Otherwise, you're going to get billed for all that stuff being there. And if you have thousands of servers, hundreds of servers, yeah, it's a lot of money. So yeah, clean all that up manually once it's all completed. So I deleted the S3 VNDK in the bucket that I created for that particular job that I deleted for the SQL server. I found also there was the AMI that we had to delete, which is what the AMI ID is. And then so I searched that AMI ID also in our snapshots, and sure enough, there's a snapshot there for that AMI as well. So I'm going to delete that too. So yeah, those are the various areas where all these things get touched in regards to the SMS service. Anyways, I will be look at that. So these two guys, they're not associated with anything. Basically, the instances that I did have are the ones that I terminated, which are these guys here. So I'm thinking that after terminating instances that were generated from SMS, the volumes themselves don't get deleted as part of the deletion process when you just terminate the instance. So make sure to delete them too if you've terminated instances created from FMS. Okay, so what the sync that we did earlier, it's actually this one here. See, that one's at 11:15, and that's got the 23F8 AMI ID. What happens is when you kick off the job, it doesn't actually show up that the AMI is available until another sync has actually taken effect. So what happened was, this was the sync level that we were at when I started and did the manual synchronization to do another replication. And then this AMI was in the background, but it wasn't presented through here. And when you did a recovery from the latest AMI, it was doing it from the latest AMI that it saw available, which was this one, which is the one that didn't have our data replicated at that point. So the next AMI ID, the 23F8, which is this one here, that one's the one that was created from our manual replication job. And the only way that I got that one to show up is by kicking off yet another replication job. So this one was missed because this is the one that was scheduled as part of the schedule to run. Because there was another job already going, this one was marked as missed. So the replication job that I kicked off, the newest one, kicked it off a while ago, but it doesn't actually show up until you click out and then you go back, and then it gives you the actual status. So let's go back in there. So it's still going. Another thing I found as well is that in regards to the status, it may not also update through here until you go to the connectors, sorry, not connectors, to the dashboard, and then you go to your replication job through here, and then it'll update and give you more refreshed information as well. But in any event, that's one of the weirdness going on in regards to replication, is that if you don't see, if you kick off a replication job, it won't show you the latest AMI for it, even though it says it's completed, until you kick off another one. But it should be available through the AMIs in EC2, and it'll be available. The thing is, you won't know it's associated with what job unless you actually look at the notes on the AMI ID. Anyways, I've just spun up from this very latest AMI, my EC2 instance. I've stopped it because, as I said, it does customize it, but it doesn't complete it, so you have to reboot the instance again for it to finish the customization. So instead of rebooting, what I've done this time is I've actually just stopped it, and I'm going to start it again. That way I don't have to keep monitoring. Anyways, I'll continue once it's already booted and we can log in. And hopefully we'll see our replicated data on there. Okay, so the EC2 instance that I recovered from that last snapshot, which represents the one that we replicated manually, has now finished being configured, and I've just logged in. I didn't get the prompt to change the password, which bodes well. And I reckon the second when the desktop loads, I will have a BMP on the icon called garbage, and I'll just double check, make sure that's available. Okay, it's back. I did notice the icon was on the desktop, and I thought, hey, maybe I logged in with a different account. And sure enough, I did log in with a different account, and there is the garbage icon in the folder structure. And yeah, that's it. I love garbage. So yeah, that all replicated correctly. Just the caveat there was to kick off another replication first before the AMI became listed in the list, so we can recover from the latest version, which is the one that we replicated manually.